Let's go, let's go. Alright, people wanna hate every day, it's okay.
All right, welcome back, Reckless Success. Tonight we got my buddy Tyler Larson. He's a Carterville native. Moved to where you're at?
I'm currently in Indianapolis. Been there since 2012-ish.
Okay. He's a Carterville native. He's also a business owner. He called me. He was in town, so I thought, hell, while you're in town, let's record an episode. So tonight I'm gonna tell a story. Let's see what I got here. I'm gonna tell a story about this time. Me and my buddy, we'll call him Shane.
Okay.
I was sitting on 13 going into Marion at the Verizon stores right there off 13 before the interstate. And he's inside the store. I'm outside and I'm rolling a joint. And right as I go to lick it, I'd been breaking it up. I'm looking, 13's right in front of me. I break up the weed and I go to lick it. And as I look over and there's a purple Cadillac with gold spoked rims. And there's these two black guys in it.
Something you don't see every day in
Something you don't see every day in Southern Illinois. It was really stood out, especially the car. So I look over right as I lick it, and they're looking at me. And they're like, come here. I'm like, all right, fuck. So I get out. I go hop in this purple Cadillac. And they're like, you want some gas? You want some loud? And I'm like, what do you got? And they pulled out some weed, and it was hydroponic. I mean, it was all right, but they wanted like $60 a gram, something stupid. I don't remember what it was. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll buy a gram off of you. It wasn't 60, but it was expensive. So I buy a gram off of them, and they're like, you want some Coke? And I'm like, what do you got? And they pulled out like a little 8-ball size bag of a bunch of little quarter bags. And they're like, you want to get some Coke? And I'm like, nah. I pulled out like a damn Ziploc baggie that had like 100 grams in it probably. And I was like, no, I'm good. And they're looking at it and they're like, well, because it was meth, and it was kind of like in a rock form, but you crush it up, it becomes a powder. But they're looking at it, and they didn't know what meth was, especially at this time. They only heard of coke and crack.
What, like, roundabout year, if we could
2003, probably.
Okay, gotcha.
Somewhere in there. Let me think about it. Somewhere in there,
okay.
2003. So, first guy leans back, and he feels it, and he goes, well, is it hard, or is it soft? And he was meaning, do you smoke it or snort it? And I was like, It's both. And then the other guy goes, well, do you smoke it or you snort it? And I said, both. And they're looking at me. They're like, what the hell's this guy got here? And one of them caught on. He started, it's the meth.
It's the meth.
He's like screaming this shit. Like they're all excited. And I'm like, damn, I'm taking my bag back. You know, I was like, give me that. And put it in my pocket. So they're all excited. They're like, oh my gosh, it's the meth. They're like, we've heard about it, but we've never seen it. And I'm like, well, let me break you off a little piece. So my buddy, Shane. Yeah, he comes out of the store now, and I'm like, hey, I met these guys. We're going to go to there, because they were from Chicago. They were down here dropping off this hydroponic weed or something, I guess, because they had a hotel room. And we go to the hotel room, and I give them some. I show them, set them all up, show them how to use it, and I leave. And they start I gave them maybe like a half gram or something. A couple hours later, my phone starts blowing up. I gave him my number. And I answer, and they're like all tripping out. They're like, man, you got to get over and get us some more. We want more. And I'm like, I'm moved on. I'm all, I got a lot of shit to do. So I'm like, yeah, okay. And I just quit answering their call, block them. The next day, me and we'll call him Shane are driving down the road on 37 going from Johnson City to Marion. And behind us, he goes, holy shit, dude. And I go, what? And he goes, look behind us. I look back, and it's those two black guys in that purple Cadillac chasing us. They had stalked us down somehow.
Oh, my God.
We hadn't been nowhere but tweaking out and going house to house. I don't know how they spotted us, but they spotted us. And now they're like, they're right on our ass. They're like trying to get our attention, pull over, so we take off running from them. And these dudes chase us in like a high-speed chase, like 100 mile an hour, down to 13. They're past, and we finally got away, but I hooked those guys quick. It was hook, line, and sinker. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Just random stuff.
Just like another day in Southern Illinois on our two major thoroughfares, 13 and 37. Black guys chasing you in Cadillacs.
Right. Another time, I was on my four-wheeler, my Raptor, and went to Colt. I turned towards Heron, and I'm going down Heron Colt Road, just riding my four-wheeler, riding wheelies, and I see another guy that we'll call John, and he's walking down the side of the road with a Kroger sack, and I spot it, and I know this guy, and we didn't really get along, but they'd jump you, you know, they'd act like your buddy and then rob you or something or whatever. So I see him walking down the road with this bag, and I spot it right away. It's big old marijuana tops sticking out of the bag, and he's walking right down Heron Colt Road. And I pull over and stop, and I'm like, what do you got there? And he's like, man, I just found all these pot plants out behind Crenshaw. What? And I'm like, damn, is there more? And he's like, yeah. I don't know how he went from there to here walking down the street, but he did, and he had a bag. I looked at the weed. I'm like, damn. So I'm like, hop on, let's go look, see if they got more.
Yeah.
We go out there. We ride all around. This guy's fucking around. He's got a sack of fucking tops on his side, you know. We ride all the way over to Marion, search this woods. He acts like he can't find it. I'm like, all right, so we go to Backyard Burger. I cut through. We go to Backyard Burger on my four-wheeler in the drive-thru, right on the main highway. And while I'm in the drive-thru, waiting on my food, I look at my arm, and I'm looking close, and all of a sudden I notice that it's like moving.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, what the fuck? I had like hundreds of seed ticks that you could just barely see just crawling all over me. We're out in all those Russian olives and just got in a tick nest.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, shit, let's go. So we left there, and I'm headed back to my parents in Carterville so I could get in the shower. I come down Skyline. I went up Sycamore, and I cut right along the airport right there where the fence is.
Sure, yeah.
I had a little path that went down the fence, cut through a farmer's field, and I'd come out up there on the main road. So I'd taken this trail so many times, but now my adrenaline was going. Like I was saying, when cops are chasing you and you get your adrenaline, that's where you fuck up. Well, I had million little bugs biting me, so I'm freaking out. My adrenaline was going. And as I came around this turn that I'd been around a million times, I caught a piece of barbed wire fence that was rolled up, and it grabbed the tire and just slammed
Threw you over. God.
Dude, and I had this guy on back. He's got his bag of pot plants. And we both, the four-wheeler goes over, and we both put our arm up, both break our collarbones. I let go of the four-wheeler. It rolls, you know, we're going fast. About like we just were out there.
Yeah, outside.
And this four-wheeler goes to rolling. Well, the dude didn't let go. So I let go, and I'm like, fuck, my collarbone's broke again. I can feel it. Every time I break a bone, like when you sprain an ankle, you're like, damn, that hurts.
Right.
But when you break a bone, you're like, it's broke.
It's broken.
I felt it or I heard it. Something just snapped. So I knew my collarbone was broke again. And I'm just sitting there like, damn, that sucks. And all of a sudden, this guy starts screaming bloody murder. And I'm like, shut up, man. You know, we're out in the middle of nowhere. He's screaming for help.
Right.
And I look over and I see smoke. And he's under the four-wheeler, and the exhaust is on him.
Oh, he's burning the shit out of him.
The shit out. It had knocked him out. He was knocked out. Then he wakes up.
Woke up to being burned by the exhaust. Oh, my God.
This dude's over here cooking. So I'm like, shit. So I go over. I got a broken collarbone. I grab the four-wheeler, flip it off of him. He's still screaming. And finally, I'm like, dude, you got to shut up. Like, there's no point in screaming. It's just me and you, and you're like hurting my head right now.
Oh, my God.
So we get the four-wheeler flipped over. We bent the axle, and we bent the handlebars straight down towards the plastic, but we couldn't pull them up because we're all fucked up. So we get on the four-wheeler, and we're in first gear, and it's just like, do every time the tire went around that axle, we're both like,
Oh, my gosh.
And we go to the nearest house, which was his farmer's house. I'd cut the backside of his field all the time. He'd come out shaking his fist, you know, and I just cut through. Well, this time I'm coming right for his house, and he comes out. And he realizes that we're fucked up. Like, the four-wheeler's all busted up.
Yeah.
Like, ugh. He's like, you want me to call an ambulance? And I was like, nah, call my stepdad. I was like, fuck cops. I got a bag of tops here. Like, we're out there with broken collarbones and shit.
Still holding on to the bag of weed.
We had to get the bag and pick up all the tops off the ground. Before we left.
Flew up in there in slow motion during your wreck. Oh, my God.
I've still got a scar right there from whenever we wrecked. I put my arm up, and I had a Fossil watch on, and when my wrist bent like that, it snapped the band. And I've still got a scar from where the timepiece was in there. But, so I'm like, no, call my stepdad. So stepdad comes. Stepdad and the farmer load the four-wheeler up, takes us to the hospital, and right away, we go in, and I'm with this, like, I mean, I'll just say he grew up. He was bred in Hearst. Anyways, we right away they're wanting to take drug tests before anything. They're gonna take blood. That's what it was. And he bucks. He's like, I ain't taking no blood. He walks out. His collarbone's just broke. I mean, you can see it hanging.
Yeah.
He leaves. He's like, fuck this. I got my shot of 100 milligrams of Demerol, and I was happy. But yeah, that was the time. We never did find the tops.
They were gone.
Yeah, they were gone.
They were gone. I'm 95% sure I know who that farmer is. If it's like the only house set back off that field behind the airport, like before 9/11, and they had not the fence there.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I know who that guy is. And it's, yeah. That's great. He helped you.
Well, it turned out. See, I was a piece of shit. My family was all still good people, so when I told him to call my stepdad, he had actually, the farmer or the guy that lived in this farmhouse, he had done some work with my stepdad in like the past month. So when my stepdad sees him, he's like, hey, bud.
Right.
And this guy's like, oh, your fucking son here.
This is him.
I've been wondering who this was.
Yeah, this guy's been the pain in my ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was a headache for a bunch of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we all were,
Right.
I think we all were. But like I was telling you earlier, like I didn't even know, like I knew like stuff is crazy in Carterville, right? But like I didn't know you went to prison. I didn't know any of that stuff because I was gone by then. I was a little bit older. And
when did you move away?
I moved away in 2012-ish. Well, I left in 2007 for a short period, and then I came back for a short period.
Yep.
And I graduated in 2001.
Okay.
And then you should have graduated in 03, 04?
Should have been 03.
03?
Yeah, but
gotcha.
I got held back a couple times.
Yeah.
Held me back in first grade. Said I was too immature. I was
Why
like
do you hold
5.
back a first grader? I mean, what?
Good story there. Since my buddy Phil is already on, he knows these people. But when I was in first grade, my first time, me and a girl in class, so in the back of the classroom, you'd go back and there was a coat hall, but it was like, you'd go through a door on each side of the back of the room, and there was a coat hall you'd hang your backpacks on.
Sure, yeah.
And we would go get our coats for recess. Well, me and this girl would stay in the coat hall, and all the kids would go outside. How the fuck? I'm in first grade. I was actually an underclassman because that's what their reason was. I was too young when I got into first grade,
gotcha.
so I was like, I was pulling older girls from first grade.
Yeah, that's.
But how the teachers wouldn't catch on and like wonder where these missing kids are, I don't know. But we would do this for like 30 minutes every day, and we'd sit back there and we'd just make out. But I failed that first year because I was too obsessed with her. My mom takes me to my dad's house. I mean, I was tore up, dude. I didn't give a fuck about failing. I was heartbroken.
Over that girl.
Was we were getting married. I thought everything.
Yeah.
So. I mean, yeah, it's my first taste of love there.
Yeah.
5 years old. I was like, so my mom takes me to my dad's, and she tells him for the weekend, and she's like, whatever you do, don't say Clarissa. And my dad's like, okay. So my mom leaves. My dad's sitting there, and he's like, hey Jess, what's up with Clarissa? I cried for fucking 48 hours.
Oh my God.
I swear, I just sat there, tore up.
Maybe they're doing you a favor, get you away from that girl, man. Yeah, too heartbroken. Too heartbroken. I think that's a good segue to my story. So I like I was saying earlier, Jesse, I've been listening to the podcast, and he's got a little cult following now in Indianapolis, and I wanted to tell a story that is equivalently as reckless as the podcast. So here's my story. Understand if we have to edit all of this out. So I met this girl, and I was convinced at the time, being a young teenager, that she was my person. She was the one.
They usually are when it's your first. You get a little taste of that.
She took my V card and put it right in her pocket, and she was gonna keep it forever,
Right.
And so her and I, both being young teenagers, would do weird sexual things with each other just to experiment. You know, just
sticking a piece of corn in her.
It's funny that you say that because that's where I'm getting. You would do just like you experiment with drugs or alcohol. I think sex also falls in that category for someone that's new, and so what we were used to doing things like inserting things like you just said into her and seeing how it felt and how if I could live with myself at night after doing so. And so she was on the softball team. I walk into her house one day and she's sorting candy, right? And she has a bag of gummy bears and she's taking all the yellow ones out. She's taking all and making a little pile of all the yellow ones, and then, you know, counting out all the other ones and putting them in little bags spread around her, sitting on the floor. And I said, why are you taking all the yellow gummy bears out of, you know, the gummy bears?
Right.
She's like, well, I don't like yellow gummy bears. I'm like, okay, well, then why are you sorting all the other gummy bears? She's like, oh, it's my turn to give the team their snacks. They would give each other like good luck snacks. So I take the yellow gummy bears and I swipe them and push them inside of her vagina. I take the yellow gummy bears out of her vagina.
I'm glad you didn't lose one.
Yeah, I know.
Could you imagine being the next guy? You're down there, you're going to town, all of a sudden you pull out a gummy bear.
It's a yellow giant bear.
Yeah, you think you just found you thought you found a gold pot. You're like, damn, I got a bitch that spits out hardballs.
I'll never go hungry again.
Yeah.
It's like the Midas touch is the yellow giant bear touch.
Yes. Now let's move on. After that, we'll move on. We'll talk a little business. It always seems appropriate. Yeah. You own your own business?
I do, yeah. I've been incorporated now for the past 2 years.
Okay, tell me a little bit.
It kind of came out of necessity. I had just moved back. I had worked for a company for a really long time, and I was in Chicago, which put me away from family.
Right.
And I wanted to get back to where my children were in Indianapolis. And a transfer wasn't open, and then I just kind of had to tell him, you know, listen, if you're not going to transfer me, I got to go. You know, my heart wasn't in the company anymore. I had sacrificed too much. I got to go.
Traveling on the road is tough work.
It is. My route was 444 miles one way, and then, you know, come back. I was at home for 18 hours. You know, I was mowing the lawn, doing laundry, and getting my ass back to the airport, you know, which is no way to live. I thought I was going to be the next millionaire, so I was willing to sacrifice. Dude, I was eating Christmas dinner by myself in a barbecue joint in Kansas City because I thought it was worth it because I was making money, right? It's not. It's not. And if anybody's listening, it's not. Right. It's not. And you think it is. You're sitting there right now alone saying, I'm doing this for my family. It's not. Time is fleeting. You don't get it back. Right. You know, and so I had to decide. I'm going. I'm leaving. I'm going back. And about right when I did, close to COVID happened. Right. So COVID happened. Everything shuts down.
Bad time to quit your job.
The career that I was in completely tumbled. Also.
Okay.
So I'm thinking like, well, that's about perfect, right? You know, I'm thinking that timing's great. I've got my kids. I'm doing the e-learning, which was a load of bullshit, by the way, that they just give you your kids and say, figure this out for a year and a half.
Right. You can't take them out of school, but you can't bring them here.
Right. Exactly. So I did this excuse for e-learning for a year and a half and expecting to go back into the industry I was in, and it wasn't there like it was, you know. And I always made stuff. I always into arts. My mother forced it on us. And as a child with ADHD, I hated it. You know, I didn't want to sit in front of the piano for 2 hours, you know. Now as an adult, I look back and I'm like,
damn, I wish I would have learned that piano.
Right, yeah.
Like to bust that out on a first date.
Right, yeah. You know how many giant bears you'd get if you did that? So many of them.
Serenade on the first date. I always wished I learned guitar for that reason.
Oh, yeah. They drop the pennies, all that.
Yeah. And I know that because every time one of my buddies busted out a guitar and started playing, my panties
they fell.
Start going down.
They fell. The floor was soaking.
I knew, like, I need to learn this shit. If it's getting me excited, then we got something wrong.
Right. So there was this piece of me that wanted to make and create, right? And there was also the necessity and the need to pay my bills and support my family the best that I can, the best of my ability. And then so I ended up making, somebody had asked me to make them a piece of furniture, you know, and I had minimal tools at the time, and I did it, and I ended up making that times 3. And I was like, I'll put these three others online, and then if they sell by, I don't know what it was, like August 1st, then I'm going to keep doing it. Well, I put them online, and they sold in like a day. Damn it. I was like, okay, that's it. That's my sign. You know, I'm in this situation that I put myself in. I get it, you know, but I'm going to make the best of it that I can.
What platform were you selling them on?
I think those were Facebook Marketplace. I think, which is a terrible place to sell stuff, but it's great for exposure. Yeah. So I did that, and then I just, you know, wash, rinse, repeat. I just did that for a while. Then I started getting into classes, learning things I've never learned before, meeting people. That's one of my favorite things to do is when I go out of town or if I catch somebody online, like not just look at their stuff and, you know, double tap and like. It's like I'm contacting them. I want you to have me come over like we're doing here and let's do something real that's not, you know, here on our phones, you know. And so I've gone visited people, learn people, get all this experience and try to take as much of this community of carpentry and construction and custom furniture building and art and swallow as much as I can at once. And then hopefully if I keep doing that every day, just do something that involves those 5 things, then somebody will be willing to pay me a little money for it. And fortunately enough, that's how it's ended up, you know, is that there was a need there. I was passionate about it. And I could pay my bills, and I got a little extra to throw in these Illinois slot machines that are everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and you're not having to listen to somebody else for travel. You know, you're able to do it on your own time, which is very important. If you're traveling for work, I hope your employer's paying you well.
No, it's not enough. But, you know, and it's scary, right? It's scary starting your own business. Like I remember it was a Sunday morning at like 3:30 in the morning and I couldn't sleep. And I was like, I want to do something because I'm awake. And I just wrote all my articles of incorporation and I sent them in. So Monday morning when the courthouse opened, in their inbox was my articles of incorporation on August 1st, you know. So I started the week as a legitimate business, you know. And you have to pay. I mean, you're paying, again, another sacrifice that's scary, you know, $400 filing fee. You know, if you have a lawyer or a representative, you're throwing out another hour of pay to them, which is like $400, you know. So you're doing, there's a lot of
taking a risk, especially if you're, you know, you're $800 to some people is a lot of money. I mean, sometimes it's hard to save up $800. So my wife and I were talking with somebody just over the weekend about it, and it's just steps. You just got to take the first step and then take the next step. But if you just wake up every day and you're like, oh, I'm going to hang out until I do this, and you avoid trying to do something productive or, you know, move yourself in that right direction. But once you start taking one step, take another step, take another step. For you, it was first step. You need to be incorporated, and and you did it. Yeah, so a lot of people just think about it. They're like, "Well, I don't know how to do that."
Well, no, I'm that person, right? And I had to get over thinking about it, you know, and like not to wax too over dramatic or religious, but like the prodigal son that we learned about. You know, he wrote a letter that was like, man, I am going to write this letter and ask for forgiveness. So when I come home, when I'm done with my wandering and whatever, that everybody's going to be, it's okay. And he spent all this time writing this letter, right? And then he gives it to his father, and his father trashes it immediately. You don't have to write that fucking letter. You know, just come back. Just do something, you know, every day. You know, and that was kind of where I was at. I had to do something every day because I had to. There was nothing else I could do, you know.
What's your Facebook? So I got on your Facebook, took us to your Facebook business page, and my wife and I were looking on there, and I told her, I said, man, that'd look real good with reckless success on it.
Yeah, it would look great. Great.
Yeah, I can't wait to get a gift.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's the stuff, I know, like, what pays the bills is going and focusing on that install I have, right? But what I like doing are those custom things,
right.
is something I could do all by myself that's smaller format for a person too,
right. You know what? One thing you could do is see it just a lot on like Facebook or wherever is they'll make like, I don't know, like headboard gun cabinets for people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Those are pretty neat. Some of them are legit. Like they got all these compartments and you would never even know. It's just like a bed frame.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, obviously, in America that have guns. So
yeah, on that Etsy site, there was 2 things that I had to keep replenishing. And I kind of wore myself out doing it, and I couldn't focus on the other stuff. But one was a home defense holder that looked real pretty.
Right.
And the other was a motorcycle helmet holder. Those 2 things, like they would sell out like that. And then I actually sent myself to the hospital making the motorcycle helmet. Really? I had to take a 3-hour break, and I came home from the ER with a chewed up finger from a router table to start making them again. Damn. And after that, I was like, okay, maybe settle down on these guys. So yeah, we
had when I worked at Crown Line, we had this badass saw, like a table saw. It was big. I mean, it was huge. And I don't do woodwork or anything, so I know very little bit about it. But if you touched it, I don't know if a hot dog would work or not.
Oh, yeah.
If you touched it, it would just lock.
The saw stop. Yeah, man.
That was crazy.
It's got a brake, and it throws it down, the blade in that brake, and locks it up. Yeah.
I mean, it made sense because there was like 500 of us, and we might need to make a cut. Most of us hadn't used a table saw.
Yeah.
So
it was a good investment. Yeah. Yeah, those are great saws. Saw stop endorsement for Reckless here.
Yeah. So, yeah, saw stop. You go buy your saw stops.
Your saw stop. Don't forget your extra brake.
Yeah. Don't try it at home. And that's basically where we're going. We like hearing other people's stories about what they do. I mean, you were kind of hitting on it of how important it was, family and family time. And if your job's taking away so much time, if you're spending your life to pay for a box that you sleep in, but you don't do anything else or do anything with your family, then there's other options out there.
Right.
And an easier option. It's a harder option at first, but once you get your groove, it's just, nobody likes change, but once you get used to changing and being a little, risky, then good things happen, and sometimes bad things happen, but you just got to keep pushing through.
You do. You got to find, I think, for me at least, like, you got to find, it's a mix of finding your passion and finding humility, right? So, like, have you heard that saying about, like, you make your bed every morning, right? So whenever you come back at night, you could say, at least I accomplished something, right? Your bed's made. In my head, like, I would be really fucking pissed if the only thing I did all day was make my bed, right? So I get up and I make my bed every morning because I don't want to. Right? I don't want to make my bed. So
that's
I'm doing
discipline, I mean, discipline, that's why they teach it in the Army. That's the same with us in prison. When I was in prison by 6:45, 7 o'clock, you had to have your bed made, corners folded. I mean, it had to be perfect. And you had to do it every day. And at first, I didn't understand, and then after doing it for a year, if I seen somebody with a messy bed, I thought, you piece of shit.
Yeah. No, and then maybe you are their accountability. You become their peer in something, and you're doing it. You're starting your day off by doing something for someone else, right? And then so a mix of that humbleness, your adaptability, and your willingness to learn, and something you're passionate about. I guarantee you wouldn't be all about excavating if you didn't really fucking like it, you know? Like,
for sure.
You wouldn't want to expand and think about your offices and make a podcast about it if it wasn't something you were passionate about.
I'm telling you, man, I recommend it to everybody.
Digging shit is awesome.
Go buy a tractor.
Dig some shit, yeah.
My son called me today, 4-year-old, and he's like, "What are you doing, Dad?" And I said, "Buddy, you wouldn't believe what I'm doing. I'm running a Traco right now, big old piece of iron, just swinging rock." And he was like, "Oh, you having fun?" I was like, "I'm having a blast, man. I can't believe I get paid to go run a big tractor. I mean, it's like, I damn near do this shit for free.
It's awesome. And I'll tell you what, something else about, if we could touch on like the trades, is there was a long time, especially in my professional career, where my nose was turned up at the trades, where I was like, I'm in my suit with my laptop, and that to me is on a higher level is what I thought, the trades, but how ignorant was I? There is something so fulfilling that I've never gotten from doing that by accomplishing this trade task for a customer or for a friend or for a family, and I feel a little bad that I missed out on that. If I wouldn't have been so proud, so stupid, I could have been having a really great career this whole time, this whole time. But, so trying something new and finding your passion takes a little fortitude also,
Find something you like to do and then build off of it. And you ain't got to love it at first, but if it's, it helps if you love it.
It does help a little bit.
Helps. But if it's not something that's just, if you get to work and you sit in your car and you're like, I don't want to go in here and do this again. That's not the job for you.
You don't have to, yeah.
I get to work. I've had my coffee. I'm smiling. The birds are chirping. Everybody's waving and hollering. Sometimes people throw roses.
Right? Dude, I remember I was in like a Macy's and the manager was talking down to the floor associate because of the type of socks he was wearing. And you could tell it just beat him up, Right. And I go up to get checked out on him. I looked at him like, hey, man, you don't have to work at a place that makes you feel bad about your socks. And he, like, you could see him like, yeah, I don't have to. Yeah. So I don't know if he went and quit that day. Right. But, man, yeah, I think maybe it helped him feel a little better.
It'd be a lot cooler if he did.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
But, yeah, you don't have to work in a place that you aren't happy unless it's a stepping stone to get to somewhere that you are happy. But when you're working a job that you love, it truly never feels like you're at work.
Oh, never.
The biggest thing I miss when I'm gone is my family. And besides that, I'm having a blast.
Sure.
I wish they were with me. They'd probably, on some of these jobs, they'd love to go with me.
Dude, but yeah. How old's your youngest?
Youngest is 4.
4. He or she?
He
would love to be on that tractor. And if I was 4 years old on a tractor,
oh yeah, he loves it. Yeah, he goes on them. He's
nice.
About like me. He'll fall asleep pretty quick whenever you get in there and you're all comfy, cuddled up on Daddy's lap, and I'm sitting there working and it's kind of vibrating a little bit. It ain't long. He's passed out.
Yeah,
I'm sitting there working with him on my arm, like
nice, awesome, man.
And then it's just weird to have the 14-year-old sit on my lap. So.
Right. Come on in. Yeah.
So he runs it by himself.
Nice.
But no, it's nice being able to teach my kids and show my kids what makes me happy. That doesn't mean that's going to be what makes them happy.
Oh yeah.
My oldest son, he wants to be a game warden, so he's into hunting, fishing, all that stuff. My youngest, he wants to be a G.I. Joe, so he's into Nerf guns and stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah,
they don't mind getting on the tractors when I need help. It's nice being able to give them those options to try that stuff out at a young age.
Yeah, and that's the thing, not limiting your scope. I think you're right. Like I had parents that were, and I think a lot of us did, that were very Midwestern conservative, right? And then there's a certain path you take of you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you know what I mean? Right. And that in itself is very limiting, Right. You're like taking out trade school, again, like if I would have not, it wasn't even in my line of vision, right. And I feel like I would have gone that way if I was left to my own devices, but there was thoughts of who could I make proud doing what,
And it goes, I know a little bit like the grant process and this and that, or what is it? It's the scholarships for school have changed a little bit. So if you can't afford school and you just don't have the means to go to college, a trade school, most of them are paid for. Most, the one I went through, which was a 4-year program, I didn't pay $1 out of pocket.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I'm sure there's somebody out there on the interweb that can fact check me, but I've heard that plumbers make more on average per hour than a primary physician, than your doctor,
right.
and you're going to school for 18 months getting your certificate, and you're making more than that guy.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. The package for us is like what, $68, I think. So, and that involves your pension and all that stuff. So, I mean, to get into a trade, you're up there pretty high. 100 is easy in a decent year, which it's bad to say that 100 is not enough anymore.
I know, that's ridiculous, right?
4 years ago, 100,000, you're like, all right, I can go out on the lake this weekend and enjoy my weekend. And now 100's like, shit, I got to do side work.
I got to hustle harder, right? I know, isn't that crazy?
I have to sell the boat and hustle harder.
Right. And I think at one point, I mean, pretty recently, like, less than 8% of America was turning $100,000 salary, right?
Really?
So, but now that's kind of the norm. That's what you look for, is that 6-figure salary job, you know. And it's and you know, I don't know a lot about economics, but it seems a lot harder now, you know, than it was.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people are hiring, but they're probably like me. You know, people call and they're like, "Hey, are you hiring?" Not really.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to deal with the headache of having to deal with somebody, and it's always a headache. And
yeah, having your labor costs go up is
labor costs go up. Then they get on unemployment, and then they didn't do anything the whole time they worked there anyways. So it's like, it's just easier to hire people if I was going to that I knew.
Oh yeah.
You know, compared to some random person, just especially in our field. Pretty much when people call me for a job, I just say, you know, I'm signatory with the union, so that's where we get our guys from. Right.
They're giving.
I recommend them to go try, you know, go apply there.
Yeah, and they're giving you guys, you know, you don't have to babysit, you know, and for me that's something too that and that's a weakness of mine for sure, is I get hyper focused, you know, as part of that ADHD thing, is I get hyper focused, and having to babysit you as a distraction, because I'll like it. I'll like babysitting that dude, and I'll get all about that rather than the job, you know, right? So, really trusting in your union giving you the right guys is really key. Like,
and you can get their own guys, but then you can just let them go and get another guy until you find one that you like or that works. Exactly. Because I have a hard time with this. I like everything done my way, or I like the final product done my way, or, you know, the way that we're used to presenting a final product. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. So, like, if I have somebody else working with me, I'm like thinking in my head, ooh, I wouldn't do it like that. But then in the end, they do a good job. Right. But I'm in my head, I'm wanting to micromanage and be like, oh, do it like this. But then I'm like, that's why I hired them for.
Right. And then you get in that dirty gray area of mansplaining. Am I being a mansplainer right now? You can't mansplain anymore. No. They've taken that from us. They've taken the explaining. They've called it mansplaining. They called it Google. And then, did I just mansplaining? I think I did, yeah.
Yep. I'm glad you did, because I had no fucking clue what you were talking about.
Let me tell you about it.
I was thinking you were talking about shaving or something.
Yeah,
I was like,
man, that's manscaping.
Yeah, I've got one of those Manscaped 2.0s. So you're talking about manscaping. I'm like, wait a minute.
Well, there's a process for that too. Let me tell you about it.
We switched topics there. Take it back a second.
Nice.
All right. Well, before you go, when you got here, we went on that little ride. How was that?
Dude, it was great. We went on we went out, and this is all your property out here. So we went around the property in a side-by-side that I haven't done in I mean, let's just say 25 years. Right. And I'm telling you, I ride a motorcycle. I have a car that's decently fast, and feeling like you're on the brink of death before going on a podcast is probably the only way to go on a podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I wanted that adrenaline rush. So there's one point, we've got a couple ponds out there, and there's a long dam. So you probably didn't even really notice it because it was dark. But on one side, there's death, which is the pond.
No, I saw.
And on the other side is the back side of the dam, which is a little rough. But when we took that last turn, we were coming around the back of the shop. That feeling when we're like sideways, going about 60, you know, and it's drifting. It just feels good.
You can't be on a podcast without it.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think that's going to be the new thing. It used to be I'd try to trick people into sniffing the old smelling salts. I think I'll just wake them up with a buggy ride.
I think it's a better idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
All right,
it was
man.
Great, me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself before we go.
Yeah, for sure. My company is Arrow and Plank LLC, which I know is really lame, a blank and a blank name, but I wanted to not reinvent the wheel, just kind of jump on it. And we do trim carpentry, we do custom installs, we do custom furniture. Again, like I said, that artistic piece of me really likes these singular one-off custom builds. Actually, since I've been in town, I drove around and grabbed from like 4 different people, like different things they wanted me to refinish and bring back in town in a couple weeks. Okay. So that's where my passion is. Again, I love doing it all. You can find us online. Unfortunately, I haven't worked on our website a lot. If you go to arrowandplank.com, it just redirects to an Etsy store. Okay. The best place to get a hold of me is on my Instagram, and I'm sure we could link it. This is where we do that thing. Links below, right? And then we can link it out, and feel free to send me messages. I've got really tough alligator skin, so if you want to send me a message that talks about how much my stuff sucks, I've already got an inbox full of them, and I'm fine with it. Either way, I like the communication.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's me.
All right. Well, we appreciate having you on, and we'll catch you guys next time. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up. You can follow us on TikTok and YouTube at reckless.success, Instagram at recklesssuccess. We're on Spotify and all major podcast services. Hit that subscribe button, please. For more information on May Excavating, check out our website or TikTok. That's a wrap. Thanks.